It is the Blue Room. It's Blue Monday. I am Matt Jones. I'm joined as ever to start your week off by Dave Downey. Dave, my voice is almost gone. It's like, do you know when you go back for the first game of the season, usually, and you had a few months away from shouting and booing, and your voice is
Yeah,
gone for a week. I did so much of it yesterday that I'm a little bit hoarse. How are you feeling today?
yeah, it's a little bit down about what happened and what follows from it and what was there before it. Really, the only thing that was going to make any of us feel better was at least getting a point. And I think I've actually seen a lot of debate, to be honest with you, about people thinking that we played well, people thinking that we did okay. We discussed this on post match, didn't we? Yesterday, there was a lot of different views in how we approached it and how Sean Dyche approached it. So I've been having a lot of mixed feelings because basically that's all I've been thinking about since yesterday and sort of trying to kick on and think how we're going to do it against Forest and then when we play Newcastle at home and all that sort of thing. So yeah, a lot of mixed feelings at the moment.
Yeah, is it? It's difficult. Like obviously, about 24 hours on since we did post match, and I think I probably mellowed a little bit to it. I think I was quite annoyed yesterday. I think I'm still annoyed about the way we started the game. And like I think I said yesterday, those first 90 seconds were just pretty naff, really, for given what the atmosphere was like and the way like the whole ground felt like a powder keg that was ready to just go. Like I said yesterday, wanted the players to kind of ride that wave of emotion and
Mm.
just try and get after United for a bit. And within a minute, you've got an 18-year-old Davies putting his foot on the ball and getting his head up and looking around.
Yeah,
So that was disappointing. But in the same breath, I saw Mick Greenall saying on Twitter that it's probably not something they necessarily prepared for in that sense. Maybe weren't really sure where he was going to play or what he was going to do. So maybe there's a few mitigating factors there. But I think, like I said, I think I have mellowed a little bit in regards to the performance. I think there probably were good aspects of it. And I think in an alternate universe, one of those Calvert-Lewin headers goes in, Decore finishes his chance. Maybe not a Gay scoring necessarily because he's had his probably one goal for the season at Palace,
yeah.
hasn't he now? But I think if one of those goes in towards the end of the first half, then there's a really good chance we probably go on and win that game. But yeah, it's just frustrating, isn't it? And I think as we kind of look ahead, it sort of feels to me like if we don't get that first goal, are we just a bit screwed in the sense that we need teams to kind of come on to us a little bit? Because I think United after they
In
scored,
general,
yeah, like after United scored yesterday, they just sat in a bit, didn't they? Like really. I think they were
yeah,
trying to just counter attack through the three very fast forwards they had, and we had to kind of do a lot of the running ourselves with the ball. And I think this side has got obviously a lot of weaknesses and a lot of strengths. This Everton one, but it sort of feels like whenever they need to be, well, whenever they need to have a bit of finesse or a bit of subtlety or a bit of guile in what they do, that's when they really come unstuck. And there were times where they were trying to like force passes through small spaces and into crowded areas, and you're hoping that the player would have a really good touch, and it was just bouncing off, and
yeah.
it never really felt like we had it in us on the ball to kind of get through them. And it's mad to say, like, when we conceded 3 goals, but like I don't think defensively we were that bad, really. It was more on the ball and in the final third where I think I was most disappointed. But have
Mm.
you changed your view at all in the last 24 hours?
I mean, rather sadly, I've watched it twice.
I
Fed
mean,
up with
that is
watching it.
that is that the whole not the whole game, just the highlights. I'm assuming.
No, no. Well, I watched it. I've recorded the 90 odd minutes what it was, but I've just like sort of fast forward the key moments like you referred to there. Um, yeah, I mean the goal they scored at the start is ridiculous, and it's a sucker punch straight away. It obviously there's so many ifs and buts in games, but when they do it 3 minutes in, it's like it's a proper it's a sucker punch. It's so much early in the game. Tactics will automatically change from the players, not just the manager. The manager will be screaming. Sean Dyche, I'm sure, was screaming, saying this doesn't change. You need to forget that goal because it was so out of the blue. To see that sort of effort, and all I've seen this morning is the comparison with Rooney's one against Man City and how good this actually was and things like that. I still argue on that what we did yesterday that he shinned it, but that's for another matter, isn't it? For another day. Yeah, I've changed my mind quite a bit in what we were talking about in terms of how this we approach this sort of game, and I have to say, I'm quite disappointed in how Dice set this up and how Dice wants us to do things that look completely different to how we've approached stuff so far this season, which has been a success. Looked at the game, 50% 50% in regards to possession each. That's non-Everton all the way through this season. I've banged on about it so much in that we look like we're at our best when we don't have as much possession in the game and we like to counter-attack. It felt to me that that's when the emotions really came into everybody on the pitch for us, because I think it was a mixed match of things. I thought when certain amount of players are right up for this and sprinting in, trying to win the ball back as fast as they can, that first 10, 15 minutes, like you referred to in the post-match yesterday, when United got the ball really early and nobody's running in, nobody's putting their head down and sprinting towards their back four. The keeper's allowed to have it for as long as he wants and hit it square to a centre-back. That sort of thing, particularly at Goodison, is what gets people right up for it. And everybody was at the start for obviously the reasons that we needed a game at Goodison. A lot of people said beforehand it was the ideal game to be playing. And obviously in hindsight, now it wasn't given United. But if I was a United fan, put it this way, I wouldn't be looking at that thinking, we've gone 6 points behind top of the league. Now I wouldn't be looking at that and thinking that's the sort of kickstart of our season. They can get us in the top four or even challenge for the league. And I'd be thinking that because we didn't, sad to say about us, we didn't actually have to do that much to win that game. That was all to do with ourselves, that in various different capacities. I don't want to bang on about the context of it, but it very much feels that was at the centre of everything, the way Dice approached this. And I've been listening to Dice a lot more than I have done this season, simply because of the things that have changed. And he was saying afterwards about, even more so, about how unfair things were, the 10 points off and all that. And then he started talking up the fans, as every manager does. It seemed a lot of desperation from what he was saying, Matt, and that's not been him so far. The Sean Dice that you think you're getting in a football club, which many of us, look, there were arguments that we were getting him. A lot of people didn't like us getting him as new manager. A lot of people did. It looked like we turned the corner this season, given what we'd done. I have sympathy with him to an extent, but the approach he set up with, well, obviously, presumably the approach he set up and the players have just done what he's asked them to do. Again, hindsight, to lose that game 3-0, I just feel that it's too easy to say the misses in there, think, oh, we could get a draw, or if that header goes in, the ifs and buts and maybes and what could have happened with Dom scoring one of the headers, and the Corday has a really good chance, all of that sort of thing. Yeah, that's typical what you see in games, ifs and buts. But watching it back several times, I get some pelters for this, but I just think that was generally a poorer performance than I think most people are saying. I know you said a couple of times it wasn't actually that bad. It's easy to say it was, given the fact we were beaten 3-0. And I get what people's points are making there, but I didn't feel that was a player, a team, and a squad reflection in what we needed for that game amongst all of ourselves watching it.
Yeah, I think the second half was really poor, wasn't it? Like, I think it's a weird one, because like we have 20 good minutes, I think, to finish the first half, and then the second half just becomes a non-event very quickly, doesn't it? After the penalty, and wouldn't say you can excuse the poor performance in the second half, but you can kind of understand why it got to a stage where they ended up playing like that, and it was really flat, because everyone had got off and gone home. United didn't really look like they were going to concede 2 goals, and you just felt like there was no way back for us. So it's one of them where I think this is, again, going to sound weird, but the potential for a good performance was there from the first half. Like, if we'd scored and then we'd kicked on, it would have been fertile ground for a real rally at the Gladys Street ending in the second half. But it's just it's the same old story. Some of the other home games, isn't it, earlier in the season? Like, I know it was against Wolves and against Fulham, we got done by late-ish goals after not taking our chances. But it just felt like if we'd scored in that spell, like those 20 minutes when we were really on top and they were bottling it and a bit, and the crowd were really up, then perhaps we could have done something. But but we didn't. It was
Do you
it
feel,
was really
Matt, sorry to interrupt you, do you feel in regards to what I was saying there, did you feel as if there was any emotion relating to what happened Premier League wise and what happened with all of us with the banners out saying corrupt and stuff?
um,
Do you think there was emotion from the team?
I, I don't know.
It's a difficult question to answer, isn't it?
Because they scored so early. It's like quite hard to say, isn't it? Like
Yeah.
because the game hadn't really started. Like it was the second home game in a row where like I actually remember being in the ground and looking up at the clock and thinking we haven't had the kick here. And like against Brighton, I think it took us like 2.5 minutes to actually touch the ball. And it
Yeah,
was very. I don't think we touched the ball, did we? Until we were taking the kick off
I
after
think you're right. Yeah,
United
yeah.
scored. Maybe we had like a cup. I think it might have broke down actually in midfield. We might have had like a couple of little kicks at it, but
Or the
you
goal
know,
kick, something like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think it can't have been more than 5 touches of the ball, and they scored. So like how can you analyze whether what happened beforehand really had too much to do with the game or was important for the narrative of the football match when it's all ripped up within 3 minutes because a lad has scored the best goal you'll ever see in your life. Like it's hard, isn't it, from that point of view to kind of say how much of an impact it would have had. Like if it had gone on for 10, 20 minutes and say like I think everybody knows the stage is Goodison goes through, doesn't it? When it's on nights like that, you have the first 10 minutes where it's like it's mad and everyone's like up for it. Then the game settles down a little bit, and then if we're not scored or we're not playing well, people start to get frustrated, and then it builds and builds and builds. Like if that happened, then I think we could say, well, yeah, maybe the occasion did get to them a bit more.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But because like the lad scored an overhead kick from the edge of the box, it's almost like, well, everything's thrown out the window, isn't it? Well, all of a sudden, then I think it just becomes a totally different game, and in a funny sort of way, like the context is just stripped away, isn't it?
Mm.
But one thing I will say is, like I said this to a few people building up to the game. A few points in the week, I was getting the same sort of vibes, and I don't even know if you'll remember the game, but I don't know if you remember like the build up to it. But do you remember we played Chelsea in the League Cup semi final in 2008? It's the
Right,
second leg.
I've thought that game so much. That, you know about the second one or the
Yeah,
first
it
one?
was the second. So the second leg. So the first one we got beat 2-1, didn't we? Wright Phillips outjumped Lescott in the 94th minute, I think,
Yeah,
to
yeah.
give
It was
them
when you scored, hit the ball. I think
an
I've never
absolute
seen a
rocket.
footballer hit
Yeah.
the ball harder. Yeah,
But I just remember before that game, like it was all the talk was like, just wait, just wait for this atmosphere. Like the atmosphere is going to be amazing. It was like the atmosphere, the atmosphere, the atmosphere. And even before the game yesterday, the march up to the ground was called the Atmosphere March, wasn't it?
yeah.
And like it just felt like, and I was just thinking, like in the build to the game, it's like I'm getting like there's so much
We've
focus on
gone
the
too
atmosphere.
far here.
Yeah, maybe I don't know. Because it's unprecedented, this, isn't it? Like getting 10 points off, everyone's really pissed off and
Mm.
fuming, and rightly so. It's like how can you say it's too much to have a big protest? And I mean, it looked great, didn't it? Like before the game in the
Yeah,
ground, it all looked boss. But I just had a thought like this week, like, are we getting a bit too hung up on it? Like, because at times it was almost like there is a football match here as well. Like, and it's a really important one
yeah,
that we need to win. So I don't know. I'm sure, but like I said, that to answer your point, and I know I've rambled on a little bit here. I think all context is kind of stripped away when someone scores a goal like that, and you can't
yeah,
really say what impact it had on it, or it's very difficult to say that anyway. But why
yeah.
do you think that had an impact?
I think that it was inevitable that it was going to happen. Whether he scored or whether he didn't. Um, Personally, as a fan, I don't think any of us get away from the context of the game itself. They're only human beings and 11 fellas on the pitch. There's no way that doesn't have a feature in their minds. I think as well when they go out on the pitch and they hear the noises that we put out there from the stands, that must have felt a lot different than they've ever experienced. It, it's like you said, it's unprecedented that what we've been punished with. It's the same for the players as well, and I think it's really easy to not think about that. They'd be right down the list of thoughts that many people have had after this game. Um, and I know a lot of people are saying, "Ah, this is the ideal game we've got here. United have been crap this season. We're playing them at home." When you look at the fact that the rest of the games, apart from Bournemouth, we've been really poor at Goodison, being really, really poor. And that's why, in a funny way, the Forest away makes me feel a lot more comfortable than taking on United at home. I hope I'm not saying that 3-4 months on the further down the line, saying that I want Everton to play away from home, because obviously this is where we've been renowned at actually getting things sorted if we need them to. So yeah, I mean, I don't want to bang on continuously about it, but yeah, I do think the emotions on that team. Look, it's a sliding door moment, isn't it, to say that, well, we would if we'd have gone 1-0 up after that ridiculous goal scored, then Everton would have been fine. United had just been kicked all over the place and just shit themselves in the game. That's why I say that I think on United's side, and I know our mate Jay, who you spoke to preview the game, he's an honest United fan. It'd be interesting to see what his thoughts were on what United had to do to win this game. And it's difficult, obviously, to get the process of that goal from. It was silly, wasn't it? You're never going to see anything like that.
Yeah,
probably the rest of the time.
Like, it's funny because I was speaking to Michael Ball today for his column in the Echo. And I sort of asked him, what's it like on being a player on the pitch and like an opponent does something like that? Like how does that feel? Like,
great question. Yeah.
And he sort of said to me, like, well, you don't get more goals for scoring a great goal. It counts the same as an Umani-ass bobble and off his arse on the line. Like, it doesn't count anymore. But I don't know. I was surprised that when there's been so much build up all week, and like the atmosphere is amazing, and then someone goes and does that. It's just like, it's the air out the balloon, isn't it? Like, I think so many people in the ground by me were just kind of like, oh God.
If you're a player, and I'd love to ask Michael Ball this, and any player really, similar to what you were saying there, that must have to stick in your mind. You can't not continue a game without thinking about that, or at least have it at some point. You thought about that again when you see that lad get hold of the ball or whatever. Like I said, I go back to that point where we're still talking about human beings here, not just a load of lads that should do anything in their lives to play football. They do it for a living, yeah, but they have their own thoughts. They go home to friends and family. They do everything that we do. And with that comes that emotion and the mentality of it as well. I think something that might have struck a few people. But I think more importantly, though, and the more crucial moments was how we reacted to it. I think, like you said, and that's why it points to the evidence to me that there was an emotion there was from seeing that goal. What we did afterwards was something that I was really, really disappointed with. I'm not going as far as saying I didn't think people were giving it 100% and fighting for what we wanted to see from everything that had gone on from those in the stands, but it felt really strange to me, the way the approach was, and how that obviously reflected on us in the stands as well. And that's always the case, isn't it? How your team plays in front of you reflects how you're feeling and what you say when you're in the stands. And what's so difficult for us is we need to lead them ahead of them leading us. And the performance, it was a really difficult watch for me. I thought it was a hard watch, not only because we conceded that goal, but also whenever, and I think you'll be the same here, Matt. And again, I've often been putting words in your mouth, and you'll probably give me a bollocking here again. But when one of our players misses an easy chance, you think, and maybe it's just an Everton thing, I'd automatically think that's a game on that. You've missed a sitter, not going to happen again. You've got to keep fighting to do that again, but it's not going to happen because you've missed a sitter. And that chance that Calvert-Lewin had early after they went in front there, I think that plays on my mind for a long, long time. And again, just wondering that does that hit onto players? And you think what happened there with Doucouré's miss after that, which looked really simple, to be honest with you. McNeil nearly scored. They cleared off the line with that lad who looks like he's going to be world class, by the way. That first half had so many different things that didn't go our way, or we didn't we didn't benefit from chances that we had to do what we needed to do. And I think that just kicks you in the bollocks as you carry on going throughout the game, not putting the ball in the back of the net.
Yeah, I totally agree with all that. And I think you're right about them, like this being like maybe forgetting the human element and all this as well. I don't think I necessarily think this about yesterday, but like I was sat there in the ground, or stood there rather in the lower Gladys, and like this is going to sound stupid, but like all of a sudden I was like, maybe getting a 10-point deduction is quite bad. Like,
Well, I know we've spoken
like,
about
like,
you've
because like
spoken about it.
all week, sorry, like it's and I get why, but like everyone's been trying to see like everyone's been pissed off. You know, people haven't welcomed it, but people have like put a positive spin on it, haven't they? It's like, right, it's going to galvanize the
Yeah,
players, galvanize the manager. We're all going to be together. Premier League's corrupt as fuck, etc., etc., etc. And everyone's like kind of rallied behind it, and like the mood's not been like it's been upbeat without being like jubilant, like we've won something or done something well. And like I think we've all kind of bought into that, which we suppose we've got to.
yeah. I
But then,
mean,
but then it's like a case of, like you said, like these are human beings, and I don't, like I said, I don't think this has come into play yesterday. I don't think it'll come into play for the next game, but maybe a few weeks down the line or a couple of months down the line. Like if we're still down where we are, like as much as the players and the manager will say, we'll straight bat any questions about it and be like, no, of course we're all together, all united, etc., etc. Like these are paying for things that but this points deduction that's got nothing to do with them.
yeah,
You saw like before the international break how much that win at Palace meant to those players. They were front of the away end, like they were absolutely loving it. They had to scrap tooth and nail for 3 points in a like horrible ground, brutal conditions, and they went down there and they dug it out and they got 3 points and it was a huge win. And it's just been chalked off. It's just
yeah,
it's gone now.
yeah,
Like it's like anything. Like I'm sure anybody listening to this, like in your whatever your job is, whatever your line of work is,
yeah,
if you worked really hard on something for like 3 months, blood, sweat, and tears, staying late, working for your lunch hour or whatever, and you've got it all together, and then somebody else came in and deleted it off your computer or just
yeah,
wiped it clean. Like, how would you
yeah,
feel?
exactly.
And it's
Yeah,
and again, like I think it's still too raw, and we are all together, and we are all united because of this, and because of the ridiculous nature of the punishments. But further down the line, I think if things don't pick up quickly, and listen, I'm confident we can go and win on Saturday, and I'm confident we can get results against Chelsea and Newcastle at home as well. But if things don't go well, then when does that when does that creep into the minds of players? Like, oh God, we're down here, but it's nothing to do with me, really.
yeah.
Do you get what I mean?
I think that's spot on. I think as well the things that started coming into people's minds, well, literally minutes after that decision came to us, the deduction that came to us, people are thinking, well, it's going to be fine because it's an early part of the season. We've been really good in the last few games. 10 points off us means that we're only 2 points away from getting out of the bottom three, whilst you've got three of the worst ever clubs that have come up to the Premier League. I think that's perfectly innocent for people to assume that, because those bottom three, which are no longer the bottom three, I've been appalling when I've seen them, apart from seeing Luton beat us and get a draw at home to Liverpool. Burnley and Sheffield United have been absolutely atrocious. When I look at that, I think, well, I can see why most people have thought, oh, it's no big deal. That's no big deal. And because we're Everton, because we're used to trying to survive from relegation in the last 3 years, then we'll find a way. We'll always find a way. I think that's like a common opinion from most of us as fans, is we will find a way to get out of this regardless of what it is. But then when you see what goes on County Road, when you see everybody getting the flags out and everybody screaming, singing the songs, love all that. That was a massive help to what we did against Bournemouth on the last day of last season to keep us up. But you can't alter the fact that it's a completely different scenario as to why we're doing stuff like that. It's inevitable that comes into your mind, because when things happen in a game, even you get to the point with the referees giving a decision that went against us when it shouldn't have, your opinion about that, your reaction to that is still, it's completely different to that sort of level playing field in inverted commas that we did to stay up last season. This is so different, Matt. And I think you're spot on when you say like this'll take some time before everybody's getting what they need to understand with this, not just constantly banging on about. And look, credit to everyone that's done it, protesting, knowing what happens with the appeal, which is another thing on its own that could still hit us in the balls. When people are still going on about how it's so corrupt and going down to the HQ of the Premier League in down in London, stuff like that. Whilst that's the thing you want to throw at the back or the front of a newspaper, as you'll know more than anybody else, They're the things, they're the pictures people will see. They're what most journalists will talk about. They're what podcasts like ourselves and everybody else will refer to. That's not the thing that is needed. That's not what we need supporting wise. And look, I'm trying to not sound like I'm telling other people or sound like some sort of martyr and telling people how they should do things. I just think a little bit of a step back into the context of what we've got actually literally do in getting the points on the board here, rather than thinking, well, this has happened, that's happened. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that. Oh, it's typical Everton getting kicked. We don't get the right decisions. Nothing goes our way. I'd like to think, and this is why I thought that, and I said this to you last week, that Sean Dyche is probably the perfect man to have for this, given the Burnley stuff when he kept them up and that siege mentality that he seemed to just nail to keep them in the Premier League for as long as he actually did. That's a manager that you want for this. But it seems to me, and look, obviously it's only been just over a week or so that we've had this, he needs to learn things about this too, because it's so unprecedented, Matt, that we don't have generally a clue of how to act other than try and keep it as we did before this deduction came along. And that has to stay the same as much as it possibly can from Sean Dyche.
But that's almost impossible, isn't it?
Exactly right. That's the final thing I was going to say there, is that is impossible. It's like you're being given anything in life and you've never had to do it before, or you've never experienced anything before. The automatic thing to think about that is you're not going to be immediately successful at it straight away, or in general you won't be. And this is exactly the same with a Premier League club that's had those deductions. It's going to be banging on with the appeal and all that. It's going to be banging on throughout the rest of the season if it doesn't get put back, which it won't. It's difficult to say to people, but that needs to go onto the back burner for as quickly as it possibly can, because how many people have spoken to you or me or anybody else in general how good we were before this happened? Like you mentioned, the Palace game, the points we got, was it 6 wins from last 9? As hard as it'll be, those thoughts towards that are much more important than banging on about 10 points that we've been deducted.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, I think it's all still raw, isn't it? So like,
that's what you're spot on about, mate. Yeah, like everyone will go down. Everyone will go down to Forest at the weekend. There'll still be the banners. There'll still be the corrupt thing. There'll still be all that, and that's what most clubs will do. That's what generally fans will do. But I think generally we need to think of a time where like you need to just get rid of that now, and we've got to go and win games based on the Everton we've been, the Everton that Sean Dyche seems to have got a pattern for the way we play, the possession stuff, all the things we talk about with the analytical stuff we do at the end of games. All of that needs to be priority, as sad and as difficult and as unfair as it was to what we've got.
I think you can do both. Like, I don't think fans going to protest at Premier League HQ necessarily means they can't focus on footy. But like, I think Dyche, one of his favourite phrases is blocking out the noise, isn't it? But like that must be hard to do when there is so much furore around the football club.
Well, can you imagine, Matt, what he'd be saying when they walk into training, first of all, the day after the news came along, and also today or tomorrow when they're back in training? I'd love to be on a fly on the wall there in terms of what he says, because I think it's pretty inevitable that he'd be screaming, saying, "This is backs against the wall here, lads. This is what Everton, funnily enough, Everton have stood for." When you think back to the Moyes years, it's always been, well, we can only spend a few quid every single season, but somehow we find a way to win games. I could imagine that Sean Dyche is saying similar things like that. The players' reaction, though, I don't. It's like I said, it's unprecedented. So you can't literally say what we need to do and what these lads can go and do. It's like I said, it's the mentality of people, and they're only human beings.
Yeah, I totally agree. Let's do our usual bits for this show then. Everton player of the weekend. I'll go first. I'm not going to pick any of the lads who played yesterday because they're all pretty crap. Apart from, I thought Jarrod Brown had a decent game, to be fair. Probably best of the bad bunch. But I'm going to go for Natalie Bjorn, Dave, who, as the lads were struggling against Manchester United, came off the bench in the second half, scored a penalty for Everton women. and gave them a 2-1 win against Aston Villa, who I think are struggling themselves in the WSL. But been a bit of a ropey start to the season, hasn't it, for the girls? They've been levered a few times. They obviously had that win at Anfield, which was boss, but struggling to find much consistency. So made up for them to get a win. And yeah, Natalie Bjorn coming off the bench and scoring. So I've gone for who are you going to go for?
I've stuck to the lads, and you're spot on. By the way, that's a big win for the women's team away at Aston Villa. That's a big win. Aston Villa is somebody else I'm going to mention in a moment or two for our other chat, our other question. But I've gone for Michalenko once again, and that's because I don't know whether it's because Ashley Young, I think, who we banged on about so long, that shouldn't really be near the first 11. I think a load of people will be listening to this agreeing with what I'm saying. Not only because of it is a lot because of the way he gave away that penalty, because it looked like he was about 10 minutes behind anybody else. So Martial was about a yard in front of him before he actually puts his foot out and takes him down. In regards to that, I didn't see Michalenko doing much wrong. I didn't have anybody supporting him coming back in McNeil and Harrison. I don't think he had any much else.
He hit the bar, didn't he? But I'd gone.
Yeah. I mean, I think most people. Yeah,
what
most
was
people
it?
that
Was
got
it like
off.
a shot or like a header or what?
No. I think most people that got off at the end. It was like it was weird. Like you'd think a player that got to the sort of like the left hand side of the D, you're thinking he's just going to put his foot through this, but it's sort of like he hit it like to curl it in to the other side. It was a really strange shot, and it just hit the crossbar. It would have gone in. Like the keeper had no chance. Just hit the bar and went down. And look, it was on 89 minutes, so nothing would have come from it. But again, he nearly scored his third goal in 3 games. I have a lot of sympathy with that lad for all sorts of reasons, like I've said. But I thought he was decent yesterday. Thought he was probably the pick of the bunch that didn't do anything wrong in terms of United going on to win that 3-0. The least of all of that wasn't his fault.
Yeah, fair enough. I think he was all right, wasn't he?
I think he's the type of player that you look at in a game like this. You don't speak about him much because you're fuming about the rest. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think when you're chasing the game, though, you do notice his limitations.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I don't think you're not going to see him. People, the first thing you think of, left back Leighton Baines, which is slightly unfair given how high is the bar set for anyone with the left foot who comes in when we've had Leighton Baines. But I don't have a problem with him at left back when I used to, say 6 months ago, and I think that's a bit of a credit to him.
Yeah, and Luca Dean as well, who played really well, or is playing really well for Villa.
That's an excellent way of moving on to the next.
Go on, you go first. Your football and moments of the weekend, then.
So, football and moment for me was Ollie Watkins scoring the winner for Aston Villa against Spurs. That lad, I think it's gone slightly underrated given everything else that goes on with England and Kane and whatnot. He's still been getting games for them and stuff, but it's come under the radar a little bit, away from everything else, like Man City, Liverpool, all that stuff, Arsenal going back up to the top. I think he is lethal. He is absolutely lethal. And the way they've started playing under Unai Emery, well, it's obviously not going under the radar now because they're
title race.
They're 2 points off the top of the league, Matt.
Do you think they're in the title race?
I wouldn't go that far with them, but
who was more likely to win the league, them or Spurs?
That's an excellent question.
I'd say Villa, I think.
With trying to take away the hindsight of it, I would go with Villa. I'm not going to G myself up a little bit, but that was my pick when we did it at the start of the season. I thought Aston Villa were going to be a real top 4 contender. The top 4 to 6 is going to be a cracking battle when you look at it right now. But going back to Watkins there, he tends to be just that you just got one touch and score type of mentality, and he did exactly that. Great ball through to him from Tielemans, and he just takes one slot, bangs it in 2-1. And then the other thing itself is Aston Villa as a whole. I think Emery's got the perfect setup of what they do. He's getting the best out of players that you looked at and think, oh, maybe not. Maybe you thought, like John McGinn has already finished his career. There's no way you're going to see him a decent midfielder in the Premier League. Absolute nonsense to say that. He was fantastic. I really like watching Aston Villa because I wouldn't go as far as sentiment to say this, Matt, but they used to be a side that I equated a lot to us. They were the type of Everton side, like we did with Spurs. It was like Villa and Spurs used to make me think that we're like the North version of them. Villa obviously the Midlands one, and Spurs down south. So my choice is Aston Villa. There, the manager they've got as well. I think they're going to go a long, long way with him. And yeah, I think you're right. Top four at least. But they're definitely going to be in the title fight, even though they're 2 points off. But have you seen the home record, by the way?
Yeah, it's ridiculous, isn't it? Like 13 in a row, is it they've won?
13 in a row. They won all six so far this season. Yesterday, I heard his quotes before that game at Spurs where he was saying, "Oh, our away record simply not good enough. They've only lost 2 away from home and now won 4 games." So he seems to have perfection in his mind, but the way in which they play, I think they're a scary side to go and play. And we beat them in the League Cup, didn't we?
Yeah. Watkins was on the bench though, wasn't he, that night? So
yeah, don't be saying that, Matt. We were boss to go there and beat. Now we're going to go and win the League Cup, aren't we?
It was a good performance, yeah, really good.
Yeah.
But yeah, Watkins is great, isn't he? Like, again, I don't care about England, but I was thinking this the other day, like, he won't do it, but I think him and Kane would work great together as like a front two. Like Kane dropping into that space like he does, Watkins running in behind. You know, I think that would really potentially work quite well, but he's too negative, isn't he, Southgate, to try something like that.
I was going to say a lot of people. Sorry to interrupt you, Matt. I was going to say to me, he linked me quite. It reminds me quite a lot of Jermaine Defoe. When Jermaine Defoe was at his peak, he was getting one-touch goal. He's lightning quick. He can run in beside. Your opposition doesn't know how high up they want to play with the back four. He just looks like an absolute nightmare for any defender.
Excuse me. My moment was the Elise goal. Did you see that?
Elise? No, I haven't seen it yet.
So Michael Elise for Crystal Palace against Luton. Yeah, I'll describe it. Gets the ball on the halfway line, beats the defender, cuts inside with his left foot and just absolutely rattles it into the top corner. Unbelievable goal.
Shame they got beat 2-1, by the way. Well, our nightmare side, Luton, who are 5 points ahead of us now as well, go and get another 3 points.
I know. And the other moments was that Souček goal.
Yeah, I saw that. It just makes me, it made me smile at the away end there, behind the goal. It reminds me of going to like Marine or something like that, you know what I mean? Or Bootle FC, where there's about like 15 people behind it. It's all crammed in. It still doesn't look like it could be a Premier League ground.
So on Saturday, I had like Soccer Saturday on in the background, and I think Sue was doing that game.
Yeah.
And I bet she's absolutely buzzing that West Ham have scored there.
Yeah.
It's got a really professional throughout it, but I bet you secretly she's doing knee slides along the studio floor in the advert break when West Ham scored.
As soon as Burnley went 1-0 up with that, I thought this is just going to be an absolute disaster of a weekend. And...
Yeah, can't believe it. Nearly the end of end of November, and we're checking other team scores.
I know, mate. It's just dreadful, isn't it? Christmas is coming. Got a horrible, horrible fixture list. Surely something's got to turn.
I'm looking forward to the home. I'm looking forward to the home game still. I think like Chelsea are beatable. I think Newcastle have been hit and miss. We've got a cup quarter final. You know, City on the 27th is a bit shite, but you know there's some good 3 good home games in a row there where the atmosphere will be really good.
Do you not feel as if like feel down the years we've always had a really like horrible run at Christmas?
Feels like we play City like in this
all the time,
spell every year, yeah. Because it was the last season we had the 1-1, then we had the Etihad when Gray scored.
That's it. Yes, Gray scored that.
And we had the game that was postponed for COVID. That was due. Was that Boxing Day as well?
It was. I think you're right. Yeah.
Well, certainly between Christmas and New Year. Like, it seems like we play them all the time, like in the middle of Christmas and New Year. But
I don't mind doing that and get them out the way. To be honest with you, mate, at the moment.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. They haven't looked as good this season, have they? But you know, might still be too strong for us, unfortunately. But we'll leave it there anyway. If you're watching us on YouTube, let us know who your Everton player of the weekend was. Let us know your thoughts on the game or moments from world football that you enjoyed. Also like and subscribe as well. If you're listening on a podcast, leave a review. Leave us a rating. 5 stars, even if you haven't enjoyed it. It all else. But I'm sure you have enjoyed it if you got to this point. I'd like to think. So yeah, leave a rating, leave a review. all these things help with the algorithms and that kind of stuff. But yeah, we'll be back later in the week with Subs Weekly, with Weekly, with Weekend Preview, with Mailbag, as we look ahead to that game against Nottingham Forest on Saturday, which is absolutely enormous, isn't it? But that's been Blue Monday. Cheers to Dave as well. Up the toffees, and we'll speak to you again very soon.